Self-improvement doesn't fail because people don't care. Okay? It fails because they try to go at it alone. People read the books. People watch the videos. We even set the goals. We work on our why. We work on our purpose. We, make the tracker. We do all of these kinds of things. And it doesn't work for most people. Why? Because we rely on our effort. We rely on our willpower. And that's the problem. See, when life shows up, and it does, it's not because of a lack of resistance or pressure. That pressure exposes what effort can't sustain without having a structure. It's not with resistance that we're not doing the things we want to do. It's that pressure. And that's what I want to unpack today. Effort and willpower are just not enough. The real that motivation, it doesn't really sustain growth. That's the problem. We think that we should have, if we've motivated enough, if our why is strong enough, if our willpower is strong enough, we hear all these things about being self-made success, and all of those things are celebrated, right? But what you don't understand is that that's not how actually everything works. It's not. All of that stuff is just a small snippet. And yes, do we need to put in effort? Yes, of course we do. Do we need to have willpower? Yes, of course we do. Okay? These are the things that sustain us when we are completely by ourselves. Okay? But that's the thing. We don't need to be all by ourselves. That self-made success? No, I'm sorry. That self-made person may have been able to have a little bit more of these things than the most people, but I can guarantee you that there were people in that person's life that gave them that support. Those rooms that they went into, they got their support from there. Okay? Now, I used to believe all of these things. In fact, for a long time, for me, I could do something 1 month easy. No problem. I could sustain it for 31 days on a consistent basis, regardless of the pressure, regardless of what was going on around me. In fact, I made it a point. I actually made it a point to never start something new unless it was on a busy month. Now, why did I say on a busy month? Why not when it was slow? Because I knew that if I couldn't sustain it on a busy month when there was pressure, I wouldn't be able to sustain it, any other time, okay? So I started doing everything on a busy month, okay? Now, I also knew that 3 months was about my max. I could get through about 3 months, and then I would start to relax, and I would fail. Okay? And that ate at me. And it ate at me. It was constantly the fact. 1 month, no problem. 3 months, then I'd miss a day, I'd miss 2 days, I'd miss 4 days, and then I'd just be like, whatever. Right? I'm like, people are sitting here, you gotta do it for 21 days and you'd have a habit, right? 21 days and you'd have a habit, and I couldn't do it. My effort was not enough. My willpower was not enough to be able to sustain me past these 3 months. There was an occasional time where I actually made it up to 6 months. Okay? Yeah. But by then, I was burnt out. The amount of effort that it took, the amount of willpower that it took, literally just burned me out. And it wasn't because of my why. It wasn't because of my belief. I found out it was a lack of support, a lack of accountability. Because the real problem wasn't this. And that's what I thought it was. I thought it was me. But what it really was this. I was missing this aspect right here, support. And I was thinking that isolation was what was going to get me. Like, I needed to do that. What was my problem there? Isolation, that was my ego. That was my ego talking. That was me. That was my independence. Okay? That was my independence. Like, I needed to prove to myself that I could do it, right? And it was also just straight up proving to myself, like I said. Okay? That's what I thought. I was like, I just need to prove it to myself. I just need to know that I can do it. Okay? But the problem with isolation, the problem with that is that you lose out on so much stuff. You lose out on standards. Okay? You lose out on feedback. You lose out on having that reinforcement. It's that aspects of that support that provide this kind of stuff. You miss out on seeing something that is greater than self. Okay? And you also miss out. And this is the part. This is the part that I thought, if I was able to do this, if I was able to get that habit, right? That habit, then I would have that forward pull. But what ended up happening was, when I finally got all of these things, it was because I found support in other people. I found those rooms. I found those mentors, and I grabbed onto them. And I'm like, help me. I found my friends. And where did I find those? In those rooms, in that environment. You don't find it normally. Because if you are sitting here and you're trying to get this done and it's not working for you, you need to upgrade who you're with. See, we all start out with our New Year's resolutions like a fresh start, right? It's just like, okay, it's a fresh start. We just made those New Year's resolutions, just barely. Like, we're going to go after it, a fresh start. But the thing is growth is very fragile. Why? Because it makes us uncomfortable. It puts us in situations where we're scared. It puts us in situations where, like, anxiety starts showing up. That's what growth is. It puts us beyond the comfortable. And if we're trying to rely on just effort and willpower alone to make it through there, it's fragile. And not only that, one of the reasons why we isolate and we don't want other people, part of that ego aspect is that we want to avoid being seen starting small. We have this avoidance to failure. When you find your tribe, when you find those people who are willing to help you out, then that failure is all of a sudden celebrated. And it's all of a sudden found like, hey, you went further than you ever had before, and you made it further. And as you're running and as you're going after it, you're falling down. But here's the deal. When you're with other people and we're all running together, instead of falling back, you're falling forward. So, how do we resolve that? How do we get out of this aspect of like that self-improvement and why it fails for so many people? Let me tell you, the first aspect is finding that support. Okay? Finding that support. That is the first aspect of it. The next thing, you need to get some sort of structure. Okay? Some sort of structure. And then third, you need to find out and get that accountability. Those three things. Once you find those three things, that's when things really start moving forward. That's when self-improvement really starts to accelerate. That's when the self-improvement, instead of just being add on those, tiny habits, those atomic habits, those 1%. No, dude. You start jumping 10%, 20%, 100%, 2 times, 5 times. When you get this together, that's when those giant leaps start happening. If you want to stay with those 1% increase, stick here. But if you really want to see things move forward, you need to find this. Motivation, that's emotional. That is fleeting. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how much. You're doing really good one day, and then something happens, and then boom, you're not feeling very good. But then another thing happens in the day, and boom, you're back on it, right? That's emotional. That's your motivation. Okay? Now, having that, it's going to go fluctuate back and forth, back and forth. It's all kind of, it just doesn't work that well. But the structure, that's mechanical. That is a system. You know where you're at. You see where you're at. That support, that's that stabilizing force. Instead of going like this, back and forth and up and down, okay? Now, what you're doing is you're just kind of riding waves like this. Oh, you're still going up and down, but it's not nearly what it used to be. And finally, once you get that support, that right there, that accountability, once you hit that accountability, that's that measurement. That's the thing that really moves things forward from here on out. So I challenge you to find those rooms, because that's what it's all about. We're here for self-improvement. We're here to become better. So let's find those rooms and really let's get going.